name is Jo, and I'm a nymphomaniac. Sexuality is the strongest force in human beings.
Nice weather today, huh?
What?
A little cooler for spring, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's kind of chilly out.
Yep.
I wanted to be picked up, put down, again and again. I wanted to be treated like a thing. I am a nymphomaniac, and I love my filthy, dirty lust.
A self-diagnosed nymphomaniac recounts her erotic experiences to the man who saved her after a beating. The latest from Lars Von Trier, Nymphomaniac Volume 1 and 2.
Nice. 4 hours of boom boom sexy sexy. Just like me
You
after
wish
I
you
take
could, you wish you could go 4 hours.
4 hours of boom boom sexy time puppet style. Just like when I take puppet Viagra.
Okay.
Approved by Gene Simmons.
I didn't think you needed that, Bill, but thanks for sharing. Let's talk about the story here. Well, the story was contrived. The beaten nympho found by an old man living alone who's an expert of everything except sex. This script was pretentious and overindulgent.
The story is weak, I agree. There's no center. There's really no nucleus holding the film together.
Right.
The stuff in the room where, like you said, the older guy and the girl confessing her sins. It's interesting, but it's not enough to hold two films. Characters in Nymphomaniac 1 and 2.
Yeah, there were some of those.
Well, you know, like other Lars Von Trier films, he puts his female characters in pretty extreme situations. Nymphomaniac 1 and 2 being no exception.
Right.
Yes, our character gets banged on a train, she gets whipped in the ass, she gets double-teamed by two African brothers who have an argument while having a full erection on camera. Yes, these are interesting situations.
A sword fight, if you will.
I would have to say, at the very least. Very interesting. You know, this film is really more about character behavior than it is about character development. And on that level, it interests me. Their behavior interests me, and it held me. So I thought the character work was pretty good.
You're right, there was no character development. I actually found the secondary characters way more interesting than the main two.
They were, yeah.
You know, the way older Jo just droned on and on about her demanding more of the sunrise and Seligman's redundant dissertations. I mean, I was like, enough already.
It's like being in Brooklyn talking to some chick.
Yeah, the acting was numb and one level for way too much of the film. You're right, Stacey Martin did bring some life to that character, I will give you that. But the supporting characters were the ones that woke me up and were a much needed change of pace. Like the super hot grown-up Jamie Bell, Hey Billy Elliot, and Uma Thurman. Her cameo was great.
It was.
It was deliciously dark and funny. And
To be honest, my first thought was never, ever to let either of you see the children. But then I changed my mind. I thought it only right that their father be confronted by the little people whose lives he has destroyed. Would it be all right if I show the children the whoring bed? After all, they also had a stake in this event.
Dear director Lars Von Trier, the lingering shot of a hairy vagina finding the edge of a phone book was not necessary to your story. You put it there to shock, and you know it. This is a guy that wanted to make a dirty movie.
Yes.
And then he tries to make all these correlations between art and sex and history and religion and be so deep, but then uses visual aids to make his point because he, A, knew it was bullshit and that he was reaching, or he thinks his audience is too stupid to get it, and he has to teach them.
Sounds like you don't really like Nymphomaniac Volume 1 and Volume 2. Listen, Lars Von Trier, pretension and Lars Von Trier go together like pretzels and ice cream. Or peanut butter and jelly. He is a pretentious film director. Most of his films do linger on certain visuals. He is a poet who injects his own poetry and philosophy over visuals.
How about a guy that needs a shrink and tries to take out his demons on film?
Well, that's really what he's all about. I mean, that's the whole point of his film.
That doesn't make him a poet.
Some of them work.
Makes him a weirdo.
Okay, you touch on really interesting points about Lars Von Trier. Yes, he is self-indulgent. His films are self-indulgent. He kind of gives us all these shocking scenes of sex, and he does give us the poetry and the metaphors and this and that. But some of them work, some of them hit, some of them don't. Doesn't equal an overall perfectly directed film. Spectacle. Well, full disclosure here, folks. Erin and I did watch Nymphomaniac Volume 1 and 2 on the small screen, on demand. Now, this film was released both in the theaters and on demand. You have your option to see it online or in the theater. Did we really need to see Joe's sexual escapades blown up on the big screen? The answer is really no. So I have to say, spectacle-wise, the film lived well on the small screen. Very little reason to go out and pay $14 to see it on the big screen.
And I think the spectacle would have been the same for me on the small or the big screen, and that is... Seriously, little boobies, tons of genitalia, zero imagination. I'll say it again.
There was a lot of in this movie. It made
and
me
normally,
feel uncomfortable.
normally I kind
Saggy
of, I'm all for more male parts being on than female parts, but after a while, it's like you've seen one, you've seen them all, and it's just a little overdone.
Experienced puppet, are you?
The Erin element. There was no Erin element. None whatsoever. Wait for it.
The film factor! So listen,
wow.
you have a very well-respected director making a film about sex, and yes, he gave us a lot of sex. Some of the chapters, some of the sexual scenes were compelling, but I wanted a little bit more. It kind of the film left me feeling cold, much like the character's vagina at the end of Volume 1.
Woo.
So Mr. Von Trier, I would have liked a little bit more impact. You made your sex film. I would have liked a little bit more.
I'm gonna go find my soul tree.
I demand more from the sunsets.
That's my only sin. I've always demanded more from the sunset.
Written by a European...
More colors. More something else.
I wonder if that was written by a six-year-old Italian boy who's banging his teacher, who's 38. That would have been interesting.
Extra credit there.
Yeah, right? Talk about nymphomaniac. I am a stud. I write poetry. Take your pants off. Nymphomaniac.
Oh, you do not shave.
You do not shave. You are old school.
I lie.
I do what my grandpappy did. I trim for you.
Ew, okay, gross.